Hello and welcome to Release Date Rewind. My name is Mark J. Parker and I am a film lover, filmmaker, film celebrator. And normally this is an audio podcast wherever you get your podcasts on your favorite apps. But thanks to Portland Media Center, you are about to watch the video component of this show where I celebrate movie anniversaries with my friends. Each month, I usually talk about two different movies that I love with different friends, and we talk about the making of the movies, trivia, any fun memories associated with them. So I hope you enjoy, because now it's time to rewind. All right, everybody, I am so excited to be with my brand new friend who I met on Instagram, this great guy with an awesome page that if you haven't found it, you got to find it now because it's chock full of great trivia, history, all about queer films, queer entertainment. Please, everybody, welcome Derek Le Beau to Release Date Rewind. Hi, Derek.
Hi. Hello. Thanks for having me.
So you're in Vancouver. I still have never been.
Yeah, it's actually it's just starting to get a little bit chilly now that summer is
Yeah.
finally ending. It was
Well, I
too hot for
see
me.
the hat. I've always loved fall too. I hear you. I'm not yet wearing the beanie and the cardigan like you. You look great. I'm still trying to, as you can see, trying to just hold on to, those warm September days before then we are bundled up. But yeah, bring on the pumpkin.
I get it. I live in Canada, so the only difference
Yeah.
is for me it probably actually gets colder where you are, but we get a lot of rain. So
Oh, yep. Okay. You get a lot. Yeah. I still have never been to Vancouver, haven't been to Seattle yet. So I got to go over to that neck of the woods. Have you lived in Vancouver your whole life?
yeah, except for a year I lived in Florida. I worked at Disney World
Oh,
and did their cultural representative program
oh,
in Epcot.
cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I'm so happy to be chatting with you, Derek. So tell me about Queer Cinema Archive. It's an Instagram page. How long have you been running it? When did you start?
I started it in December of 2020, so it's
Oh,
almost 2 years now.
oh my
Um,
gosh, that's great. And you have a great following. I love all your posts. Tell us if anyone out there doesn't know, what is it? What do you post? What do you write about?
Basically, I look at queer representation in film basically from the beginning of cinema to present day. And I just
Mhm.
select random movies, either that are well known or ones that have been forgotten, like some silent
Mhm.
films. A fun one that I did a couple days ago was a couple Disney shorts that featured pansy characters from the 1930s.
Yeah. Yeah, you do a great mix of brand new stuff, classics from 80s, 90s, that era, and then yeah, way back in silent black and white days. Where do you find all this stuff? Do you just do a ton of research, or have you already, were you already super interested in queer representation in film?
Yeah, it started because when I was in university, I was working towards a bachelor's degree in fine arts, and
Okay.
the I guess just the way everything kind of collided because my art practice was very much about queerness, and then I was also really interested in film, and then all of my professors were very supportive about my digging into the past to influence
Mm,
to influence my own art. But then in the process of that, I got a lot more interested in just the way history has changed for queer representation since the beginning of film. So
yeah.
um, yeah, once I graduated, I just kept on building my library, and that's where
Yeah.
a lot of the
As we
research
can
comes from.
see. That's amazing. Yeah. So would you say when you're, picking some films to post about, are you mostly Googling, or are you mostly looking at all these great books and all this stuff you've acquired over the years, or is it a mix of both?
It's a
What
mix
what do
of
you dig
both.
into? Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes I'll see a post on Instagram, or a follower will send me a request, um, and that can be how it comes to, or I'm just reading one of the books to see what else I can do from a certain
Yeah.
period, or if I'm looking for representation of people of color. That comes from multiple different sources, from books and from specialty articles and stuff on the internet, or from JSTOR.
Yeah.
It kind of comes from everywhere.
Yeah, that's amazing. How much time would you say you put into, because like we were saying offline, you have another job, of course. How much time do you put into the Instagram page and all the research?
Basically, when I was working full time, it turned into a second full time job.
Yeah,
So
I
I have
believe it.
no idea what the hours actually were, but minimum 4 hours a day, and that's
Okay,
on days that I
wow.
was working. So
Yeah. Oh, totally.
yeah,
Yeah. I hear you. The hustle. Well, that's
yeah.
amazing. Well, it absolutely shows, because
Thanks.
Derek posts everything from clips, mostly clips, but everything from like great backstory and trivia and all that good history and how it affected, pop culture or just, society, and how the films were affected by society at these different times, What's been something that you were really like, was there any specific movie recently in the last few months that you were super excited to post about and dig into? Anything that like you specifically, were surprised by or extra excited by?
There's there's lots that pop up that I'm like, oh, I really want to look into that, but sometimes it takes a lot of extra research. So one that I'm wanting to post about is from 1919, and it's called "Different from the Others," and it's technically the first feature film to have a queer protagonist, a gay
Oh,
protagonist,
wow.
actually, and
Yeah.
that's from Germany. Yeah,
Interesting. See, that's what I love about this page because it's so fun to see you post movies that I know and love. And then also all these movies I haven't gotten around to. I might know about them, but I haven't gotten around to them yet. Or I've never even heard anything about them. I had no idea they're available online to watch.
I've kind of learned a lot of the timeline of what happened in the different decades that affected representation in film, especially in American film. That's where a lot of my
Mm.
focus has been. I'm trying to branch out and do other countries as well, but I focus a lot on American film because well, I speak English, so it's easier. But
Yep.
I also know a lot of the history, despite being Canadian. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I will be branching out more, but that's the one thing that it's helped out a lot is just seeing, just because the Hollywood studio system is so big, I was always really curious about why we don't see more gay protagonists in film. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of reasons why why representation is complicated and why whichever studio is doing that new movie Bros that's coming out at the end of the month
Hmm.
is selling it as the first gay romantic comedy from a major studio.
Right. That is interesting. I'm right there with you. I've heard that same kind of slogan as well, and it looks great. I mean, happy. Of course happy it exists, but I'm like, wait, is that real? Like, why do I feel like I've already seen like a big gay, rom com? But I guess we really haven't. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's interesting. This movie that we're going to talk about, In and Out, I guess it can't be called a gay. It's definitely not a gay rom com. I guess it's not
Mm-mm.
really a rom. It's just a gay comedy, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah,
You
because it's
know,
very sanitized for the straight audience.
very sanitized. There is no gay romance, although Tom Selleck's character does seem to. I don't know if he's interested in Howard and Kevin Kline's character, or if he just wants to kiss him and kind of, just force him to embrace, gayness or something, But yeah,
It's
I guess we can't call it a gay rom com,
it's
man.
very ambiguous, and I think that was
Mm-hmm.
on purpose. And
Yeah.
the interesting thing about the kiss that they have in the movie is um, it's played for laughs. So the only gay
Yeah.
kiss in the movie is played for laughs, where so you would expect the end of the movie to feature a gay kiss between the two of them, and you
Right.
almost get that because Tom Selleck is straightening his tie in the end,
Mm-hmm.
and they're dressed up for a wedding, and it's kind of mysterious, and then you find out that it's actually a renewal of vows for his parents.
Yep.
So there is no gay romance in the end of this movie. It's just about straight
Right.
people at the end, which is
Yeah.
interesting because that's exactly how the Birdcage ends as well. It
Right.
doesn't feature a gay kiss in that one, and then it ends on a heterosexual wedding. It's like patting straight people on the back for making it through a gay movie.
You're so right. Yeah. And it's funny, I've talked about the Birdcage on this show as well, and I love that movie. I mean, how can you
Oh, me
not? But
too.
you're so right. It does. And even though our leads, especially in that one, two gay men, a loving couple, we've been with them the entire time. but still it ends not focused on them, on the young kind of like future of the family, the straight future, getting married and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
right. And of course, this came about a year and a half after the Birdcage. So still kind of the same sort of sentiment. You're right. That even though we are following a gay man, and in this case, following his, confirmation of his sexuality and all that, it's still his story ends, and then we're gonna still party, but it's gonna be about the straights. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do love the ending though. At least we hear Macho Man, and I have to say, rewatching it, this was the first time I've seen it in a long time. Oh my gosh. I hadn't seen it in years. But seeing Kevin Kline dance is not only so much fun and exciting, but I don't know, maybe am I just going crazy? But like I kind of teared up. like I'm like, oh, he's himself. I love that he's dancing, and he's a good dancer,
He
like let him
is.
dance,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just like got a little emotional seeing him when he's obviously the most famous scene when he's listening to the audio tape, right? And then he just can't control it and he's dancing to I Will Survive. I was like getting like tears in my eyes. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? But it was just so awesome, I don't know. I'm crazy.
I mean, how
Right.
can you not dance to that song?
Welcome to our series on exploring your masculinity. Stand straight and tall. Truly manly men do not dance. Oh, come on!
And like the way the shots are, showing his legs and he just can't contain it. I mean, it's so much fun, but I know it's how do I say? It's maybe less about his acceptance of himself and more about the primarily straight audience's reaction to the comedy of that moment, right? I mean, I guess
It's
it's written by a gay man, so obviously
yeah.
there's got to be there's some authenticity here, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's mostly for us to laugh that he really can't contain himself,
And that's kind of
right?
the interesting thing too, because it allows the straight audience to laugh at the gay jokes, which isn't necessarily like a good thing. But
Right.
on the flip side of that, like the gay writer has written them, so you're kind of like, what's like
Yeah, it's complicated,
it
right?
is
Because it's
complicated. Yeah.
you were supposed to laugh. It is a
Yeah.
comedy. The writer Paul Rudnick, who we'll get into in a second, he is a gay man, and as we all know by now, a lot of gay comedy is sarcastic, sassy, a little dark,
Yeah.
so poking fun at ourselves and at others. So yeah, it's tough with this movie because the humor is, I don't want to say mean, but the humor is a little poking fun,
Yeah.
but so then that gives the audience free reign to poke fun. So it's complicated,
It is
right?
complicated. Yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, coming out of the 90s too, it's not really much of a surprise, and compared to some of the other films that exist around this period with queer characters,
Hmm.
this one's pretty light in comparison.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
For sure.
yeah, and the interesting thing about queer characters in Hollywood films in the 90s is it's very different from independent films of the time, because the Hollywood films, like we were saying, they're mostly gay movies made for a straight audience, whereas the
Hmm.
independent films that were coming out during this period are part of the new queer cinema movement. So they were
Yeah.
queer stories being told by queer people, and the characters are like unapologetically queer. They don't care what
Mm.
straight people think. Like, it's just they're doing their own thing, and it's great.
Yeah. Totally. And when this movie starts, the music, I think it's by Mark Shaman, um, is so big Hollywood mid to late 90s comedy. It looks beautiful. It's shot so well. So yeah, right from the start, whether you've seen it before or not, that like, yes, this is a big Hollywood movie. It's from the start it's going to be sanitized. It's not like you're saying, it's not like other similar stories that were a little bit more gritty, a little bit more realistic, indie. Yeah, this is totally different lane. So just enjoy this mostly light ride,
Yeah.
All right, so now I'm gonna just set the scene for us. So Derek, you'll kind of hear me say some other entertainment that was going on at this time, because this movie was number one for its first weekend, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's
Yeah.
and Birdcage the year prior was number one for like close to a month. So audiences definitely enjoyed at least a comedy about gay kind of craziness, you know? So this was also stuff that was number one and very popular at this time, okay? On the music side, how funny. We're talking about a gay movie and we have, you know, a gay icon. Mariah Carey was the number one song with Honey at the same time, okay? Followed by Foolish Games by Jewel, that was super popular, and Barbie Girl, remember that song by Aqua? That had just come to the US. So those were very popular songs at this time. I feel like a nice mix of, you know, gay friendly artists.
I was
On
obsessed with
TV,
all of those.
right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Honey was like my jam. And Barbie Girl, I mean, no wonder people made fun of me. I was obsessed with that song, right?
That
So,
whole Aqua album is fantastic.
oh, so good.
Um,
Yes. And was
yeah.
it like their only one? Did they do any others? Do you know?
They followed it up with an album called Aquarius, which has some good songs on
Oh.
it, but it's not as good as the first.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. Well, hey Aqua, love ya. On TV, speaking of the birdcage, our straight actress Ally McBeal, Callista Flockhart. Ally McBeal had just premiered on TV. Of course, we know that was a big deal. On the news side, a little bit of sadder note, obviously, Princess Diana had just passed away and was just buried earlier this month in September 1997. And I totally forgot, as was Mother Teresa. So we
Oh
lost two
wow.
major female powerhouse figures in this scope of like a week. So major losses. On lighter notes, Google.com was registered as a domain name in September 1997, and
Wow.
Apple had just named co-founder Steve Jobs as their interim CEO. Isn't that funny?
That's
Little
crazy.
did they know they'd be,
Yeah.
you know, changing the game, right? And then last thing I'll say before we move on, popular movies at this time, other number ones, other, you know, big things people were going to see in the theaters. This came out the same day as LA Confidential, which went on to win some Oscars,
Yeah.
and also Wishmaster, a really weird horror movie. I don't know if you like horror, but I love
I
horror.
do
And
like horror.
I remember seeing that, and I haven't seen it in many years. I don't think it was good, but I saw it in theaters with my dad. Other popular movies, The Full Monty, G.I. Jane, The Game with Michael Douglas. I know a lot of people love that David Fincher movie. And then there was also Air Force One and Conspiracy Theory. So lots of, you know, straight white leads, big movie stars at the box office. And then in comes In and Out, which came out September 19th, 1997, 25 years ago. So Derek, I'll throw it over to you in your own words. It doesn't need to be long. It could be long, whatever you want to say. For anyone out there who hasn't rewatched, obviously we're getting into spoilers and that's how it goes. Tell us, what is In and Out about?
I can probably sum it up pretty easily. It's
Yeah.
it's a gay teacher who lives in a small town is outed by one of his former students at the Academy Awards, and of course the whole town is watching. So everyone finds out that he is gay or might be gay, and the teacher is about to get married. So it kind of creates a screwball situation, and he's
Totally.
forced to deal with his sexuality openly and on the
Yes.
news.
In the quiet town of Greenleaf, Indiana, a high school teacher is about to be married.
After 3 long years, and I'm sure a lot of you were asking, what was the problem?
You said it!
A former student is about to be honored.
And the winner is Cameron Drake, to serve and protect.
But for Howard Brackett,
I'd like to dedicate this whole night to a great guy and a great teacher, to Howard Brackett from Greenleaf, Indiana.
a bombshell is about to drop.
And he's gay.
And the
Oh my
interesting
God.
thing is it was based on the fact that Tom Hanks outed his high school drama teacher in
Yeah.
his Academy Award acceptance speech for Philadelphia.
Yeah, just a couple years prior.
Yeah.
Now, that is so interesting because I don't recall that Tom Hanks Oscar speech. I think I was just too young and I should have rewatched it, but I should have watched the clip, but I didn't have a chance to. Now, do we know, did he out his teacher or was his teacher already out? Do we know the
His-
specifics of that?
Yeah, I was reading about it. His teacher was out to some friends and family. So it was a very public outing, but he was already retired, so he didn't lose his job like the character in the movie did. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the greatest thing. He also mentioned someone else's name and
Yep.
outed that person as well publicly, but I don't know the specifics of the second one because it's not talked about as much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Pretty crazy. I mean, obviously it's so nice to speak about them when you're winning an Oscar. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Whoops.
I accidentally, in high school, I was in my Gay Straight Alliance, and I remember a good friend of mine ran it at the time, and she had asked me, hey, do you want to run it like for your senior year? And I was like, honestly, like I was also running film club for a year. I was like focusing on anything but school, which wasn't a good idea. But and so when I was like in consideration to run Gay Straight Alliance, when I was like sort of on the fence, a younger student did come out to me, and I had no idea. And we weren't friends, just classmates. And I had no idea how to handle that news. And so in front of not a bunch of people, but in front of the Gay Straight Alliance group, there were at least a few of us in the room. And I was talking to my friend, and I just sort of said openly, like, oh, yeah, so and so like told me he's gay. Like, what should I do? And oh my God, everyone's like, no, you can't tell us that. That's not our news. Like, and it's true. And, I just was too young. I didn't really know how to like handle such a cool thing. But yeah, it's like, it's not really your news, if someone tells you that kind of stuff. At least it wasn't back then,
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I get it. I
Right?
slipped up and thought I was outing a friend of mine when I think I was probably in grade 12 at the time, or maybe it was just after I graduated, and it was casual conversation with our friends, and then I slipped up, but I didn't realize, they didn't tell me until later. They're like, you're an idiot. We all already knew. We just didn't tell you that we knew.
Right. Yeah. It's just
So
like,
I was like, oh, thank God. But yeah.
It's hard, when you're young like that. And especially, yeah, if it's someone that, you're not super close with, it's a really cool thing to do for someone to reach out to you with that. But oh my gosh, I was overwhelmed. I was like, I don't know, what do I do, guys? And they were like, oh, come on, no, and I was like, oh shit, so that's what I thought about. But anyway, I digress. So Derek, tell me, in 1997, what were you doing? You were probably in school?
I was in 7th grade.
You were in 7th grade. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think you saw this in theaters, or when do you think you first saw In and Out?
I definitely saw it with my family, but
Yeah.
we probably rented it on VHS because we used to have like family movie nights on the weekends. So I
Totally.
definitely remember that, and I can vaguely remember seeing it, but the only thing that really stands out to me about that time is, this is really stupid, but I was obsessed with The Wizard of Oz, and when I
Oh
was
yeah.
flipping through one of the free magazines from the movie theater, um, I noticed the name Frank Oz, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, his last name's Oz. That's pretty cool.
That's so funny. Oh
That's
my
my
gosh, I
memory of
probably
this
did the
movie.
same thing. Yes, absolutely. The connection. You're like, what? That's so cool. Yeah. I can't remember if I feel like I did see it in theaters. I was just slightly younger than you. I think I was in 10th. I was in 5th or 6th grade, right around there. And I feel like I might have seen it in theaters, but it's so hard to remember. But yeah, I same thing. I saw it with my family, and I remember they were cracking up. They liked it a lot. My parents, I'm going to out them a little bit. They are obviously cool with gay people, of course, but especially like characters in this movie, they appreciated gay people for their comedy, their entertainment, their skills, but it was kind of like, oh, but no, like you shouldn't be gay, or like, oh no,
Yeah,
not so close to me, but yeah, you, oh my gosh, we love you, which again, kind of complicated, right? It's like, and
yeah,
Howard's family is very similar. His mom and different people are like, oh my God, yeah, that's so cool, but like, ooh, don't look at me. The boys cover themselves with the towels, and oh my God, the principal, played by Bob Newhart, doesn't want Howard to even touch him, even by the end, when it's like everyone is totally, for the most part, accepting him, cool with this, but he still like doesn't want Howard to hug him, that kind
yeah.
of stuff.
Look at me. Do I look like a homosexual?
Would you walk for me?
Once the main censorship code ended in 1968, queer characters were allowed to be in film again, because from 1934 until 68 they were banned,
Mm,
and then basically that moved on to films featuring queer characters, some good, some bad, very complicated because we have lots of tropes in queer representation.
right.
But independent film was also on the rise during this time, and it was also post Stonewall, so gay liberation was on the rise. to. So basically this led up to 1982. Fox was releasing a movie called Making Love, which was a really big deal because it was a gay romantic drama. And this movie bombed at the box office. But
is that the one with Harry Hamlin?
Yeah.
Yes,
Harry Hamlin and oh man, I'm forgetting the names of the other actors, but the guy from Twin Peaks and the woman from Charlie's Angels.
From Charlie's Angels, yeah, of course. Now I can't remember her name, but yeah, I think you had posted about that maybe earlier this year or so, and I had heard about it, but never really saw clips of that. But that looks so good. Yeah,
But the interesting thing about it is because it bombed, and it was also around the time of like the beginning of the AIDS crisis in America. All because of all the homophobia afterwards, studios just wouldn't touch movies with gay protagonists. So basically until like 1993, when Tom Hanks wins the Academy Award for Philadelphia, and that movie's a big deal, you start getting a bit more traction, and then you had The Birdcage, and then In and Out. So like the fact that this movie exists is like, it's still important because it was influential, and a lot of gay Hollywood movies, even though they were catered towards a straight audience, were also about promoting tolerance. So
you know, what did you first think of this movie when you saw it? Do you remember any early thoughts you had when you first watched?
Honestly, none.
Yeah.
I remember it exists, but I do not remember my thoughts.
That's so funny. I remember having a good time with it, laughing a lot, as you know, which is the goal for this movie. Not really, you know, we were young, so not really understanding any possibly negative things. And also I think that's also just hindsight, right? I think as the years go by, when you rewatch something like this, you're like, oh, okay, that was a choice, you know? Do you think it holds up well? What do you think?
I think parts of it really, really do, especially Joan Cusack. I mean, she was nominated for an Academy Award for this, which I kind
forgot.
of crazy. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, it is kind of crazy. You know, we think of like, you know, Bridesmaids with Melissa McCarthy, like those kind of surprising, really comedic, wild roles. But yeah, Joan Cusack, I mean, so good. And I think Kevin Kline was really great, and
he is
great
really
with
good in this. Yeah.
both physical, you know, and emotional comedy. But yeah, Joan Cusack, oh my God, is everybody gay?
Yeah.
I mean, really good, funny stuff.
Yeah.
Howard, what is he talking about?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm nobody. I'm just a little teacher in a little town. Oh, it's gonna be fine. By tomorrow night, we'll even remember. There he is. That's him. Mr. Racket. Do you know Ellen?
A teacher in trouble. A town under siege.
Thanks so much for watching. Next week will be part 2 of this discussion. And in the meantime, please follow Release Date Rewind on Instagram.